G'day guys, Friday, welcome back to the lab. I lied to you yesterday. Accidentally. I told you this was all good. When I finished the video, it was getting on a bit. Went inside, came back out later on, and there was a puddle of brake fluid on the floor again. The clutch fluid, in this case, the same stuff, right? So, this is how we're going to pressure test without having to put the gearbox back on. We just put a G-clamp. A couple of bits of thick enough aluminium to spread the load out, so we're not going to damage anything. We're not going to crank that up excessively tight, and then we're going to put some pressure on the system and see what's actually letting go. In this case, it's my bad. It was the little ferrule that goes inside here. It's actually on the bench. Let's have a look at it. That there thing there. Now, we're not going to be able to focus on that because it's too far down inside the tube. That little ferrule has moved that way. It's moved off the end of the Teflon liner, towards the end of the Teflon liner. The reason why that's happened is we've had these fittings, banjo fittings on the end. I've undone these two, left that one and that on the end of the hose, and put our straight hose end on there. Normally you can get away with that. You shouldn't do that. It's not really the recommended thing to do. Something like the clutch, it's not actually a big deal if it goes wrong. Once it's assembled and tested, it's unlikely to fail beyond that point, right? Especially if you put it to a proper test. I wouldn't do that on brakes. I have not done that on brakes, and I wouldn't do it on the fuel system. I would potentially do it on crankcase ventilation and things like that, but not critical stuff. So anyway, that's where it was going wrong. Well, it's actually a couple of things, and the fittings that go into the actual slave cylinder. Those first ones there, they were both a little bit loose. So we had those leaking a little bit. We had this leaking here, and that's where all the dramas were. It happens. I probably should have paid more attention to everything that I was doing with all that, but I guess it was done kind of in a rush to try and get that done and get on with some other things. My bad. Fixed now though. I've been in there and I've stood on that pedal as hard as I can stand on it, and we do not have any leaks. So we've got some more. This is the lower quality Penrite stuff. So we've got the fancy Penrite racing brake fluid, bling bling. That'll be won't have any problems with boiling clutch fluid. Definitely not. Well, if we do something horribly wrong. So that's all taken care of now. I can take this all back off and we can put the gearbox back on and we can march on with the other things. We have ordered through Richard at HDT Precision shifty, bangy, cutty, changey, geary thingy that bolts onto here. We need to arrange all that. And then, as I said in the earlier video, yesterday's video, the gear lever is going to be here, and the gearbox is backwards in the car, right? So when you pull back, which is supposed to be shifting up a gear, the car is backwards, so you would be pushing forwards, and we don't want that because someone will get confused and end up with an engine explosion. So one way to do it is to take this off and flip it up the other way, and then have the rod come down the other way, and that reverses all that. But I have to put a speed bulge in the transmission tunnel, which it's possible I might just do that, and then we can use the HGT gear pretty much stock and just bolt it into the car and show that, hey, you can do this. You can make things work in real weird situations if you just use a tiny little bit of engineering knowledge. It's not really even super complicated at all. It's pretty damn simple, to be honest, but it just shows what can be done if you try. Something I thought of last night is we need a gearbox ventilation system. We've got a blank on there at the moment. We can't just leave that on there. We also need one for our transfer box. I have had just a bottle of Blue V, an empty bottle of Blue V, cable tied up in here in the past, and that's probably not really suitable for where we're trying to go with this. It's supposed to be heading in the general direction of being a professional build. We haven't got a breather for our front diff either, and that one tends to spit out a little bit of oil because it's running backwards. So I'm thinking, we can't see it, but way up in there is that fancy can that we made. The tank, it's just in there, and it's attached to that cross brace. We do another version of that, over on the other side, a little bit smaller, with a horribly expensive K&N filter on it, same as what our catch can arrangement in the back has got. And we get some sort of symmetry in the front there, because my wife keeps telling me I need to build on that side and in the front here, the same as what I've got on that side, but it'll get in the way of the battery and stuff like that, right? So that's why I haven't done that. But if we do it a slightly smaller size, it'll look sort of good and achieve the goals that we want to achieve. We will be taking our ventilation for our gearbox quite some distance from here all the way to the front, but that's no big deal. We'll use some real lightweight hose, it'll be fine. Okay, let's get the gearbox back in there. Hopefully, won't have to take it out to fix up all my mistakes in here. All back in. Everyone thank my lovely wife for giving us a hand with this. Sitting in the driver's seat that's up in there, behind there, pushing on the pedal for me. A little bit more, a little bit less. Yeah. Me in here. This was in gear at the time. Of course, it's out of gear now. Turning the shaft on the gearbox to feel when the clutch was engaging and disengaging. And there's bad news and there's good news. The bad news is it's not quite right. The good news is all I need to do is reduce the size of a stop that's in there that stops the pedal over traveling what's going on inside here. So obviously I showed you on the bench the other day, we had a different slave cylinder arrangement and lever and release bearing, and everything's changed, right? So we now need a little bit more travel on the pedal up in there to get the right amount of travel here. It does disengage the clutch, but it just feels like it's just dragging a little bit when I'm turning this here, a little bit more than what I would expect, right? You're never going to have it just spin as free as that, but it just feels like it's hanging on a little bit. So I'm not going to fluff around with it now, and I'll leave that alone. We'll wait till it's running and check to see what it's doing when it's running, because we won't need to go in here by the looks of everything that's going on. It's all going to be to do with the stop on the pedal up there, which might change to a pedal box, but I didn't say that out loud. But if I die in the next couple of days, probably wifey found out that I said that. So I'm just going to have a little bit of a think about what I'm attacking next. I think I'm looking right at it. That needs sorting out. It's a rear brakes. Oh, there's a lot of things that need sorting out. We need to put this bleeder somewhere. We need to put this power cable somewhere nicer. A whole heap of things that need sorting out. But there's other things that need to happen first. Our gear lever type arrangement. Looking up here, measuring what we've got up here. This first hole that's on this lever here, the shortest one. If we chop off the excess, I know, hacking into these shiny parts. Glenn, what are you up to? Chop off the excess, flick that lever upside down, it should just clear the transmission tunnel. So no fiddling with any metal work. And that gives our shifting pattern a reverse, like I said. So the lever comes down here and it swaps it over and does what we need to do with it. So that might happen. I'll look into that. The biggest problem is, right, it's not a big problem, but the biggest problem is right here, right now, with it all bolted in like this. You might slip that off the end of that there. When you turn it upside down and try and put it back on, you're not going to be able to, because it's going to be on an angle, because the end of the lever is going to hit up there, cock everything over, and it won't slide onto the splines. But that's no biggie. We just plan to put that on before we put the gearbox back up in there, and everything will work out. So now that I've figured out what I'm doing with the gear shifter, the perfect logical thing to do is come to the back of the car and take the exhaust off. Yep. Dozens of people screaming, just finish something. Stop jumping around from here to there to there. I want to see something finished and work. Yeah, get over it. There's a pinhole there. It's right where you see it. It's right at the top. Shonky workmanship, Glenn. So that needs fixing, and it's not shiny enough, right? It's just not. Like everything else, where so much shiny and things are polished, and this is second-hand used. So fix the pinhole up. I don't know. Do I buffle? No, I'm not going to buffle the welds off. I'll just polish it. We've got to take them off anyway to put the gaskets on there, because this has all been assembled without the gaskets, in case we're taking this off, put them back on, take it off, put it on, and just ruin the gaskets. So it looks like we're heading in the direction of these won't have to come off again. So take them off, fix that sort of thing, polish them, put the gaskets on, put them back on. Good Friday afternoon stuff. Yes. Out with the trusty polishing wheel on the old crappy old bench grinder there. That came up really quickly. That was like 30 seconds on that. I'm not going to go for show car finish. I just want to get rid of all the brown yuckiness. Because when you tune it, when it starts off bright stainless steel, I'll call it, eventually at a certain temperature it all turns pretty cool colours of blue and bronze and all that sort of carry on. Makes for a good photo. And then eventually it all just goes brown and yucky after a couple of years or whatever. So that's not going to take very long. That'll be good. It was a trick. No, it was a trick. See our polishy wheel thingy here that I was using? It's got a lot of aluminium on the surface of it. What was going on was it was transferring that aluminium onto the surface here and polishing that and making this all look really, really good, really bright. It looked a lot nicer than what it looks now. However, when you give it a wipe with a paper towel and get rid of that stuff, oh, it's still brown underneath. Oh! Never mind. I'm not a professional polisher, don't pretend to be, don't want to be told how to polish. But I went to our mates down at Repco and got ourselves some metal polish and some flappy discs with Scotch Brite discs. They didn't come from Repco. And some sanding paper. 75 cents a sheet for sandpaper now. Jeebers. Anyway, so I'll carefully attack a piece of scrap from in here somewhere. I'll find some that's discoloured like this, and we'll see where we end up. And if it comes up good, and it doesn't take forever, we'll attack it with whatever we need to do to make it shiny. 15 minutes later. If we stay back here, it actually looks relatively good. It's not shiny, it's not polished, it's just clean and fresh looking. But if we get a bit closer, you can see some of the welds that have sort of been half polished flat, but not really done very well, because that wasn't the intent to start with. And this sort of stuff here, they were never really designed to be shiny, smooth like handrails in a shopping mall. It was an exhaust system on a race car. So I might have kind of shot myself in the foot going halfway in between, because it probably doesn't look as good as it could do. Bearing in mind you'll only see it from the top, and most people won't be right up in its face anyway. I'll polish up the other one and I'll see how I'm feeling, whether I can be bothered. I think they call it whitewashing. You go back over the welds and tidy them up and make them look a little bit nicer, which could be relatively easily done, bearing in mind it's an exhaust system, not a work of art. I did say it's a race car, not a work of art, didn't I? And that there's no need to go around blending the welds out. And so I'm going around blending all the welds out. So we're going to have, I'm not going to go nuts with it. It's not going to be mega, super awesome high quality. But we'll have that instead of some areas are a bit like that. Remember, I made these nearly would have been 5 years ago actually, something like that. I was very, very unwell, so they probably could have been a lot better. Some of it was alright, but the tube moved around a little bit, and I've figured out the techniques, and don't forget the ways of getting that far betterer now, when I'm not in a hurry and just smashing stuff together. So I'll go through this. I think that goes on that side, so we're looking at this. This is the top side. See, there's a little bit of a doink just here that needs sorting out. And there's another dent somewhere else. Never mind. I'll go around and I'll polish all these up. I'll try and just, I mean, we've got time, right? We might as well. Let's make it look absolutely epic. Let's get rid of all the welds as best as we can. I mean, it probably just makes the car heavier, and it's a complete utter waste of time. But I'll look at it and be happy with it and know that it's good. So, I'm not sure which one's the worst one. Might actually be that one. Let's just throw that on the ground. Crash! Looks good from a distance, see? That's SEMA worthy. Not knocking people that build. No, I'm knocking people that build SEMA builds. See, this one's actually pretty good on the top. I didn't actually have to do a lot with that, but it will require a bit down the bottom here. That's going to take a bit of work to make that look right. These are fiberglass filled with perforated tube on the inside of it. Pretty sure all the fiberglass is gone. There's none left. So it's just a perforated tube with a hollow chamber, but it still makes it a little bit quieter than it would be. And as you know, once this goes in the car, you're only really seeing probably from where my thumb is through to probably this weld here. So it's just this little top section we really should make look pretty good. The rest of it, as long as it's not rubbish, will be absolutely fine. Whew. Righty. I need to put that back down near the ground in case we have an earthquake tonight, because it's that o'clock. Okay guys, cheers, bye.